Welcome to the Kidlit Club with Sally Rippon and Adrian Beck.
On this episode, Adam Cece's author advice. We focus on Room to Read, and Michael Wagner is our special guest.
Welcome to another episode of the Kidlit Club. Sally Rippon, thank you for having us in your own home.
Always a pleasure.
We've got a big show, as you just heard, ahead of us. And I wanted to touch on, just to start with, the introvert and extrovert balance for creative types.
Yeah, it's a very common problem. I think a lot of creative people I know are certainly quite introverted because you have to have quite a deep connection to your internal self just to be a creative. I think, so much of it comes from just sitting with your own thoughts and your own imagination.
Yeah.
And then you're often expected to go out into the world and spruik that. And
That's right.
Quite a different energy.
It is. It's a completely different energy. And we touched on this briefly a few episodes back.
Yep.
And the author of There's Only One Mum Like You, Jess Ratcliffe, she commented that she was dealing with the balancing act at the moment. And the reason I brought this up is because I saw a tweet not so long ago by the writer of the movie Doctor Strange. Now, I'm not sure you'd be across Doctor Strange, Sal, but I might be wrong.
Is that the Benedict Cumberbatch
It is.
one? I've seen it.
Awesome.
I have teenage boys.
So his name on Twitter anyway is C. Robert Cargill, Cargill perhaps, and he says, as writers we are mostly all introverts. I'm not sure if you agree with all this or not, Sally, but we'll get your take. Extroverts generally don't say, you know what I want to do for a living? Lock myself in a room alone for 8 hours a day. Publishing and filmmaking are collaborative. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. And he went on to say that the perfect writer personality is an introvert who becomes very good at pretending they're an extrovert for an evening before retiring to their hotel room to hide under the covers and ignore their phone.
That is so me. That is just describing me to a T.
So that is you.
That is totally me.
So do you have to pump yourself up
Yes.
to do events?
Yep.
And so
Sometimes even, this is going to sound really weird, sometimes just even the energy that it takes to be in the world and interacting is exhausting for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of love it because I do genuinely like people, but then I need time by myself. And I'm really, really fortunate that I've got a little place in the bush where I can go and literally not talk to people for days. And I come back from that feeling so refreshed and so rejuvenated. Whereas I know for some people the idea of being on their own in their own headspace for days on end would drive them crazy.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I need it and I crave it.
Yeah.
And I'd be really interested to know how many other creative people out there feel
Yeah.
the same, because it's almost like a dirty secret.
It is, isn't it? But I reckon
It's
you're
almost
right.
embarrassing.
I reckon there'd be a lot.
Yeah.
So what are your, that would be one of your tips. Let's maybe give us one or two others. What are your tips for, so one of your tips is to make sure you've got a place to escape to. If you're an introvert type,
Yeah, I don't know if that's viable for everybody.
probably
though.
not. But I mean, it could be on a smaller scale.
Not
Like it could
necessarily,
just
yeah.
be heading home and having some time to
And
yourself.
your own quiet space,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that I've learnt is just to know my own, how far I can go. And
Okay.
so
Yep.
sometimes that means that I will say yes to things, and at the time I really, really want to go to that launch, or I really, really want to go to that event. And then I'll look at my week ahead and I think, if I do that, if I go out 3 nights in a row, there's nothing left of me.
Yeah.
And I'm also bringing up a kid, and
Yes.
I do a lot of things in the world anyway, radio programs, this
Yes.
kind of thing that require me to be quite on.
Yeah.
So it's like I need to factor in quiet nights in. And when I look at my diary and I've got like 3 or 4 quiet nights in, I celebrate. I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that now. Whereas
Yeah.
I used to think there was something wrong with me, where
Yeah,
I
okay.
just have to say, oh, no, 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 all the time.
Yeah.
But that would be my greatest tip, is not to feel bad
Yeah.
about not having to be everywhere all the time.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
And as you said, I think it is perfectly natural to not want to be everywhere all the time.
Some people some
Some
people
people do.
love it. I think
Yeah.
some people are genuinely energized by being out in the world, interacting
Yeah.
all the time. And I really like it. I'm very stimulated by it. But it's a little bit like a little newborn baby. You know how newborn babies, they're kind of in awe of the world all the time, but then you have to put them down for a nap. And I'm a little bit like that.
So you're much like a newborn baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like everything comes in at me really hard and fast.
I hope that's the only way you're like a newborn baby, because there are some aspects which I'm hoping aren't too similar.
I'm toilet trained, if
Oh,
that's
good.
what you mean.
Phew.
Yeah.
So there's some good tips. So if you're a creative type out there and you're watching this, plan, I guess what we take away from this is plan your schedule so that you do have breaks.
Yeah, and don't feel bad about saying no.
Don't feel bad about saying no.
Yeah.
And maybe, if you can, it doesn't have to be a retreat in the country, but maybe have a place where you go,
A space.
which is just for you,
Yeah.
to recharge.
And do you know what I think is a good thing that has come about for introverts is actually social media. So there's good and bad about it, because you can spend too much time on social media and feel a little bit inept, and everybody out there in the world looks so successful and so happy and have amazing, lunches or whatever it is that they put on the internet. But in some ways it's a way to be in the world and be present without actually having to physically be it. So it's not a bad thing for introverts actually, because all of us in a sense are responsible for being advocates for our own work, rather than, that's a positive way of looking at it, rather than selling your product. Advocates of your work. If you don't believe in it, who else is going to believe in it? And so you've got to be the one that stands up and says, this is what I did, that everything of me is in this.
Yes.
And so social media is a kind of an in-between place where you're not literally having to see people, but you're still making sure that your work is
great advice
out there.
And particularly if for all the introverted types, or people that are slightly introverted, wherever you are on the scale.
Where are you on the spectrum?
I did that personality test you sent me, and I am through the roof introvert. I'm 97. I was 97 out of 100. Can you believe that?
No, maybe, because they probably come out about the same.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's funny, isn't it, that we make ourselves do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are we torturing ourselves?
For the greater good.
That's right. No, but we do. I do enjoy doing things like this. But as you say, you need time to recharge as well. But I take your point about social media, because writing or being creative in any way can often be a solitary existence.
Yeah.
But if you've got social media, it's almost like you've got workmates. It's almost like you've got a community there.
And you don't have to get dressed.
No, that's right. You can do it in your PJs.
Yeah.
And you dip in and out of it when you want, but you've still got that camaraderie.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good thing, which perhaps creative types maybe didn't have, 10 years or more ago.
When I started out.
But you do feel like you're all in this together in some ways, which is good, because it kind of gives you a bit of a spark up when you need it sometimes.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
I
good.
guess that's kind of what we're creating here.
Yes.
We do want to create a community, and so Adrian and I make the fools of ourselves in front of the camera. But it's really
More so me than you, Sal.
I don't know, lately. But it really is that sense that we all rely on each other, we're all connected to each other, and it's a way of introverts keeping in touch with each other.
Introverts unite.
Yeah.
We love you.
We do.
Okay, introverts, it's now time for something that I think you'll enjoy from the comfort of your own homes, on your own. It's
In your
time,
pajamas.
In your pajamas, it's time for this.
The Good Books.
Yes, it's Good Books time. One of my favourite segments, because we shine a light on people that are doing good things in the book community.
Yep.
And this time round, we want to talk about Room to Read.
It's a really, really fabulous charity.
It is.
Yep.
It's great. Doing amazing things. And one of the ambassadors who's very active with Room to Read is Tristan Banks. So I thought, well, who better to explain it than Tristan himself? So we asked him to do a little spiel down the barrel about Room to Read, everything it does, and how people can get involved. Here's Tristan.
Thanks, Adrian and Sally. So, Room to Read, I was inspired to get involved because they're a literacy organisation, but they're super dynamic. They run like a business. They are very lean on costs, founded by an amazing guy called John Wood. And there are about 758 million people in the world who are illiterate, and 2/3 are women and girls. So there's a real focus in Room to Read, particularly over the last couple of years, on educating girls in the developing world. And they see the flow-on effects of that throughout villages and families and communities. So we do a thing called the Room to Read World Change Challenge, and we've been doing it for about 6 years. We've raised over $120,000 working with Australian school kids and a bunch of amazing writer ambassadors, including the lovely Sally Rippon. And we do this World Change Challenge where in schools they do all kinds of challenges in order to raise money for girls in the developing world. And what we're trying to do is get 50 schools to support 50 girls. And all it takes is $365 in a fundraiser to support one girl for an entire year with literacy tools. So they're doing things like sponsored silence, where you sponsor a kid, the noisiest kid in your class, to be quiet for an entire day. There are sausage sizzles, there's gold coin book swaps, there are readathons, there are you can get really inventive with the things that you're doing. There's battle of the bands some schools are doing. So I guess the gauntlet that I want to throw down, the challenge that I want to throw down, is for schools to come up with the most inventive way to somehow raise $365 and know that that is going to support a girl who would otherwise not have access to education, wouldn't have access to books, and wouldn't be lucky in the way that we are, that we have, you know, these literacy tools to help us. So there you go. I hope give it a shot. Consider it. I hope you'll take part.
Thanks, Tristan. That was a great explanation, and it's a really great charity to be involved in.
It is. It's terrific. And what I also like is when these charities go and do something a little bit, you know, out of the box
Yeah.
to raise some money. At the start of the year in the Somerset Festival, which is a terrific festival, which is run every year up in Queensland, they did some Room to Read charity events, which include some sliming.
I did see pictures of that. I think they were very, very good
funny.
authors to put themselves in that
Yes.
position.
So we saw Oliver Pomervan.
Yep.
He got slimed.
Yep.
Love that. We saw Tristan himself get slimed, which was great too. And we also saw Belinda Morell get slimed
Good
as well.
sport. Would you be up for that?
Oh,
You'd be totally up for being
I'd
slimed.
love it. I'd swim through a pool of slime.
Oh, really? For any charity
Just
or just
for
for the fun of it?
I just love slime. No, that would be fun. Would you be up for being slimed?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't like that.
We'll find
I'll
some
do
other way.
Plenty of other things.
We'll find some other
like
public
to stay
humiliation for you, Sal, if you like.
Okay. No, this is enough.
But the serious part of all this is Room to Read do such great work, as Tristan said. So if you want to look into what they do, head to their website, which is on the screen, and
Lots of ways to get involved.
there are lots of ways to get involved. And keep up the good work, Room to Read. Okay, now it's time for this.
Author advice.
Author advice time, where we ask authors the best advice for advice. Funnily enough, the best advice they've ever received and the best advice they could give.
Yep.
So when I talked to Adam Cece a couple of months back, I asked him that very question, and this is what he had to say. We are lucky enough to be joined by the mighty Adam Cece, who's going to give us some author advice. Adam, the best piece of advice you ever received, and the best piece of advice you ever gave, or intend to give at some stage. Can you hit us with it?
Okay, the best piece of advice I've ever received. I don't know who to attribute this advice to, unfortunately, so I can't credit them with the advice. But basically, once I think I was listening to a podcast, and an author was saying that you basically, when you're an author, you read and read and read, and you get an idea of what you like to read, and the quality of writing that you like to read, and then you become a writer, and you try and write to that same level as what you've read, and you try to imitate, or you try to do your own style. And basically, when you first start out, you won't be able to match what you want to read with what you're actually writing. And I think that's when many writers get discouraged, because they think, oh, I'm not good enough to do this. I can't write as well as what I'm aiming to write. The books I've read and loved, I can't write the same sort of thing. And so I think that's when a lot of writers, they stop writing, or they start to get a lot of anxiety about not being able to do it. And so the best advice I ever had was, you've got to push through that, and you've got to keep writing, because the more that you just keep writing, the more you'll get better and better, and slowly you'll start to get towards what you read and what your tastes are. You'll get towards that, and your writing will improve just by continually keep doing it, keep going, and don't get discouraged at that early stage that you're not going to be able to ever reach what you're aiming to do.
That's great advice. That's great advice. And it reminds me of when I went and saw Radiohead, and I was in a very dodgy garage band, and I saw Radiohead, and I watched them play. They were amazing, and I thought to myself, that's it for me. I'm never going to play music ever again. And we quit the band a couple of days later. So I should have taken your advice. I could have been touring the world as a rock star by now.
Well, that is true. Music's a very good comparison. You'll go and see a great band, and you'll go home and you'll bang sticks on a drum, and it just won't sound the same as that amazing band you heard. You thought, well, I'm useless at this. Why even bother? I'm never going to get from here to there. But you do not stop at that point. You don't want to get discouraged and stop at that point. That is something everyone has to go through, and you just keep on going, keep on practicing, and you will get there. I'm sure Radiohead, I'm sure they were terrible at some stage as well.
Yeah, even Radiohead were terrible.
They were terrible, yeah, awful.
Well, great advice there. And what about the advice that you would give an author? Or maybe you have given this to an author.
Well, usually I try and steer clear of author advice, because there's so much of it, and you get loaded with so much of it. And if you're a person like me, you do a lot of the theory of writing, and you get told don't use adverbs and show don't tell, and you just get swarmed with all this stuff, and it can sort of cramp up your writing a bit. So I think the advice I give to writers is take in all that advice, let it sort of sit in your subconscious, but when you start writing, you've got to let it all go and just write, and don't worry about all of that sort of stuff, just write, which is also another way to get rid of writer's block is just to write. Maybe your writer's block is happening because you got all that theory behind you that is just sort of weighing down on you, and the best thing to do is just forget all that and just hope that it's sitting there in the back of your mind and you still remember enough to make your writing good. But yeah, just go for it. Just write.
Love it. I love it. Your advice is to not listen to advice. I love that.
Yes, that is my advice. Ignore all advice.
I love it. Thank you, Adam CC. You're a star. Appreciate that author advice.
Thank you, Adrian.
So you got to push through, Sal. Don't get discouraged.
Basically, don't take on any advice.
Don't take on anyone else's advice. That's right. I like that.
Yeah.
So the author advice on this occasion is don't listen to any author's advice.
None of them.
Thank you, Adam. That's great. Now it's time for this.
Our special guest. And on this episode, it's Michael Wagner.
I have Michael Wagner here with me today, and Michael has done a whole range of children's books and has been writing for quite a long time. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I'm really interested to chat with you about today is your decision to self-publish, because I know that there are a lot of writers and illustrators out there that wonder about whether this is a viable thing, and if so, if they're going to go into that, what are the things they need to be aware of. And I can't actually think of anyone who could be better to talk about this than you, because it looks like you've done really well. Your books have received awards, they've been nominated for awards.
Yeah, shortlisted.
Yeah, that's right. And I see them everywhere, so you're obviously doing something right. But first of all, why self-publish? What's in it for you?
Well, a couple of reasons. One of them was I'm a little too prolific for any publisher.
Right, interesting.
So I actually write more than a publisher is willing to publish, generally speaking, which is fair enough. So part of me wanted to just have more books out. That was part of it.
Yep.
But also, I actually am very interested in the business side of books, of the book industry.
Yep.
So I was really interested in just experiencing the whole publishing side of things as well. So that's a really important thing. If you're an author who just wants to vanity publish, then it's actually a lot of work. And it's a very steep learning curve. And I would almost say don't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe do it once or twice for the experience, but maybe don't. It is a lot of work. So, and a lot to learn. And it can be quite expensive, or the expenses add up a little. So I'd say be cautious. If you're not at all business minded, then you probably should just write another book.
Right.
If you're experiencing not getting published, then then maybe you should just keep writing, keep getting better at writing. But if in my case, I was being published and still am being published. I'm a hybrid, really. So I wanted to learn the publishing side of publishing. I wanted to. I'm a little too prolific, and I also the thing that I think has been the best thing about publishing myself is being able to write less self-consciously. And often the only thing you ever write truly unself-consciously is the first book you ever write.
Okay.
So that's the book you write without anticipating what anyone's going to think of it. You just write honestly. And I'd forgotten how beautiful it is to write for the love of writing and to say what you want to say. And it is beautiful when you actually get to write, not anticipating what a publisher or an editor or anyone, all great people. But you just write what you want to write for the love of writing. It's just I rediscovered the love of writing. And that it was worth it for that alone.
Yeah.
So
I think you road test quite a few of your books on kids as you're putting them together anyway, don't
do.
you?
I
Yeah.
do.
So it's not like you're just thinking, oh, I want to publish what I'm interested in and I don't really care about anyone else, which can be a problem sometimes when people self-publish, can't
yeah,
it?
that's right. And in
But
fact,
yours isn't that at all. You are actually going into schools, chatting with kids about what you do,
Absolutely.
and really thinking about, I guess what I'm hearing is pleasing yourself, but also going direct to the kid, not feeling like you have to please the gatekeepers a little
that's
bit.
exactly right,
Yeah.
which is a very dangerous thing to do because the gatekeepers are there and they will stop the book at the gate. And my natural inclination is to write a little bit naughty, is for things to be a little bit naughty.
You're writing to your child self, I imagine.
I am writing
That
to my
kind of
10-year-old
achieve-
self.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm trying to please, my
Yes.
10-year-old self.
Right.
But unfortunately, the gatekeepers aren't 10-year-old boys. So, and sometimes the taste of a gatekeeper isn't exactly what a 10-year-old boy would enjoy.
There's a lot of what kids should read as opposed to potentially what they want to read.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
That's right. And I also think there's it's really true what you say about the danger of just writing for the love of writing is that you can write something that really only pleases you. And
In which case, just publish one copy for yourself, right?
that's it. Yeah, just print it off.
Yeah.
Just print it off on your printer.
And your mum probably should like it
yeah,
too.
exactly. She might like it too. But yes, it's really, I speak in schools a lot.
Yeah.
I speak in schools 50 to 70 days a year.
Yeah, and you've been doing this a long time.
A long
too.
time.
Yeah.
And I road test stuff all the time. So I will read a little bit of a story. There's a book that I self-published called Pig Dude.
This is one of my favourites.
And I tested that a lot.
Yep.
So that was the book that I first published because actually, you know what? Strangely enough, I got not that much interest from a couple of publishers I'd sent it to. And I thought, okay, rather than go through the agony of sending this out and having it rejected, I thought this is the one. This is the one to start with because I've road tested this, and I'm really confident that this is worth publishing, and I sold thousands. So that's a bit grotesque when you actually mention figures. Sorry about that. But
the thing is that you, like you say, there's no point in going into it if you don't have a business head.
that's it. Yeah,
Because
that's right.
otherwise, it is ego publishing or vanity publishing, isn't it? If you're not thinking about, okay, well, I need to actually at least get a return on my investment,
Exactly.
which isn't the kind of language that often creators use.
Well, creators are the last thing a creative wants to think about.
That's right, because it takes up too much space in their brain. They want to keep it full of imagination, which is, a lovely, lovely place to be. And I think what I'm taking from what you first said is if that's the space you want to work in, then self-publishing maybe isn't the right place for you. You have to be interested in the nuts and bolts and the figures and
That's right.
spreadsheets.
You don't want to say gross things like the amount that you sold thousands of copies. You've got to have a different side to yourself when it's time to sell something than when it's time to create something. And you've got to be hard-nosed, and you've got to not be too invested.
Right.
Because you know what? Business is all about building relationships, and the best way to build a relationship, strangely enough, I think, is to be rejected by someone and not overreact.
Okay.
And not spit the dummy. And to say, that's fine.
Not
next
take it
time I have
personally.
something more, I'll be back.
Yeah.
And we creative types, we're not necessarily great. We fall apart, we crumble, we go into an embryo type position.
Yeah.
And you've got to put that to one side. That's not business.
Well, you can't take it personally, can you?
No.
And the thing is that I've been lucky enough to even sit at an acquisitions table in a publishing house, which was a great learning experience for me, because I then am suddenly seeing that even if a publisher loves the work and they're passionate about the work, unless they can convince the sales team that they can sell it, they actually can't take it on. And there was this kind of an epiphany for me, which sounds so naive, but it's like, yeah, of course. I'm just representing myself in the world. So if my books sell a lot, great. If they don't, that doesn't affect anyone more than me. Whereas a publishing house, they're employing a lot of people, and they need to know that they're going to be able to get return on their investment.
And
that really taught me a lot.
Yeah, that's right. And with the creator of So Wrong, the illustrator, and I, this is the little So Wrong series.
So what's the name of the illustrator?
Wayne Bryant.
Yep.
We've just started selling these on Amazon, which is a self-publishing, really great for self-publishers. It's a real coup. It's a really fantastic opportunity. But it's really dawned on us that our real audience is not 10-year-old boys, 10 to 12-year-old boys. That's who we think of as our audience. That's who I feel like I'm writing for and from. That's who I am as an author a lot of the time. But seriously, when you think there is no 10-year-old boy who buys a book on Amazon.
Of course.
It's his mum.
Yep.
Most of the time.
Right.
Or his dad, or his grandma, or his granddad.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And then there's librarians, and then there's teachers, less so. But they're the people that's our audience. So they are our gatekeepers. And it's given us a little bit of a, reality check.
Right.
So we do write from the heart. But, actually there was a really great experience in So Wrong. This is a very naughty book. And because Wayne and I just said, all we want to do is make each other laugh.
Yep.
And we did.
Yep.
But that was very bad in some ways. But kids love it, thank goodness. But, you can't see that. But the very start of this book is misspelt. The very first page. Hey, you.
Okay.
The character, Mighty Mikey, can't spell you even. Or there's a lot of misspellings. But once we realised that we're selling this to Amazon, we just thought it can't be that way. It can't be, it will not sell if people open it up and see deliberate misspellings on the first page, the second word of the whole book, and then it's like all the way through. No, not all the way through, only in his bits.
Okay.
And so we thought, and what a publisher I think would have said to us is change the misspellings. But we tried changing the misspellings to correct spellings, and all the energy and fun and playfulness evaporated. Was just like not funny anymore. And then Wayne had the inspired thought. He said, is there a funny way of his misspellings being corrected? And we invented his baby sister Murphy,
Genius.
Who is correcting all his spelling through the book. And she is adorable.
Yeah.
And
so that's the Amazon edition.
Yes, that's right. And we found a way that satisfied our need for playful, fun naughtiness.
That's brilliant.
But also took that very real block away from the book.
So show us what you've got there. You've got 2 So Wrongs now. Pig Dude was the first one.
Yes, So Wrong 1 and 2. And this is the one, So Wrong 2, which has been... shortlisted for the Yabbers,
That's
which we're
right.
really Yabbers, Koalas, and Crocs.
Yes,
which we're
which
really,
if you don't
really
know
excited
is the
about.
Children's Choice Awards.
When you've got something that really does have quite strong appeal to the kids, but is a little bit like, I don't know, to the gatekeepers, that gets the gatekeepers. You wear them down by talking directly to the kids and them seeing it.
How much
500
the
kids laughing their heads off.
Yeah, which is
then
exactly
they sort
what
of go,
Annie
okay,
Griffiths
fair
did.
enough, yeah. And that's a hard road. That's a lot of work.
And not everyone can do that. Not everybody has that kind of performance
That's
manner
right.
about them.
That's right. And that is the result of having spoken it's for 15 years or
That's
whatever
what I was
in
going to
schools.
say. And already having a name established from
Yeah.
having published through mainstream publishing houses for a long time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that opens a lot of doors that
Sure.
otherwise might not be open. I think it's much harder for people who are unpublished to get access to schools with their self-published material. And can I just say, I think my advice to anyone who does want to self-publish is I strongly suggest you get an editor, a freelance editor, and a proofreader. And that's 2 jobs often.
So even when
it's-
you're intentionally spelling it wrong?
Well, you don't get that
being
stuff
stupid.
proofread. No, we actually had So Wrong proofread, both of them, and the proofreader said, I don't know what to do about that part. And we said, leave it.
Yeah, it's intentional.
So,
we can spell.
Yeah, we know they're misspelled.
Yeah.
But I what we were saying before, being able to road test stuff in schools is my editorial process. Because with Pig Dude, I read it 20 or 30 times in schools, and I changed it and tweaked it and changed it back and got it so that when I finally read it, I say 20 or 30 times, but actually days. So maybe twice or 3 times.
I get it.
So I might have read it 60 times in schools.
Yeah.
That is, you get it word perfect.
Yeah.
Because you feel every clanger word. Every time you've wasted 5 seconds, you feel it really loud and clear.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that bit's not working.
Yeah.
And every time there's a word that's you deliver a little punchliney sort of thing, and you miss it because the wording's wrong. You fix that and then test it again, and then you get that stuff right. It's like writing a comedy show, I'd imagine.
Yep.
And where you try 100 jokes and 50 of them work and 50 of them don't.
Yep.
And those 50 you improve slightly each time until they're like really good
Yep.
and really solid.
So you have some picture books there that
there's one.
I don't know about.
There is actually one picture
Yeah.
book which
I have seen this one. This is
it's called
beautiful.
Family Hugs,
Yeah.
and which is illustrated by Adam Carruthers and designed by Adam Carruthers,
Okay.
and he's done an absolutely beautiful job.
But it's not a narrative. It's a collection of.
It's a collection of poems.
Yeah.
There's a little book by Quentin Blake, a picture book that we used to adore when the kids were little, called All Join In, and it is just 4 or 5 poems.
Great.
And they are amazing. You can't help but sing.
Yeah.
Because they've got choruses like All Join In. So, and as a little family, we would, they just brought us together because
That's beautiful.
you would be singing them by the time you finish it, and then after a couple of readings the kids knew all the words.
Yeah, well, children love poetry, and I think of that beautiful Meredith Costain book that came out a few years ago that was just poetry.
Doodle Dum Dancing.
Yeah.
I've never read it, but
It's
I take
beautiful.
your word for it
Yeah,
that it's
yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
And a really lovely poem is just a, it's a song.
Yeah.
It's like listening to a song. It's really
lovely.
Yeah, really enjoyable.
So what now? Have you got more books in the pipeline that you will self-publish, or are you working on another one with a publisher at the moment?
I'm working on 5 with,
okay.
with publishers.
Okay.
Actually, maybe 6. There's a new book that's just coming out now called Goodnight Little Tough Guy, which is just about all the little kids who think they're pretending they're tough, going to sleep at night. Anyway, it's a sweet little book. And I think there's 4 or 5 others coming. But we're also working on So Wrong 3.
Great.
Which is we're finding amusing.
Okay. And are you finding that kids who buy the first song So Wrong are looking out for the second one? So
Yeah,
is the series
definitely.
thing working out for you?
Yeah, it has.
Yeah,
It has. It's just
great.
and hence the decision to do a
Yeah.
third and probably a 4th.
Great.
And others after that. So
Yeah.
but each of them has a parody of a picture book in it. So the first one has The Very Hungry Catapooper. That
made me laugh.
I know, I'm sorry. And the second one is Thomas the Tank. And I'm just a bit undecided at the moment about what the next one should be. I'll road test it with you.
Okay, great. I'm laughing already.
Okay, should it be... Do you remember the book Who Sank the Boat?
Yes, Pamela Ellen.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Great book. Who Stank the Boat?
Nice.
That's one. And the other is Malice in Wonderland.
That's a bit sophisticated.
Is it really? It's the first time anyone said that about any of my writing.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's clever, but I wonder if that'll
Who
go over
stank the
kids.
boat?
I think kids, that's funnier for
Okay,
little kids,
okay.
don't you reckon?
All right, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going
okay.
for the...
Who Stank the Boat
Yeah,
it
we
is.
can take votes. We can send them in.
Okay.
Thank you. That was super fun, super fantastic.
Well, thank you very much, Sal. Another great interview.
Thank you.
Well done.
I enjoy doing them.
Well, you're a great interviewer, fast becoming the Lee Sales of this outfit. I appreciate that.
Annabelle, crap.
That's me, I'm the crap. So we just have enough time though for our giveaway for this episode, and it is Weirdo 11 Splashy Weird by Ando with illustrations by our mate Jules Faber. So you'd really want to get your hands on that. It's quite funny. It's all about Weirdo going to the swimming carnival and all the funny things that happen to him when he tries to get into the pool. And, you know, how did you go at the swimming carnival, Sal? Were you a bit of a swimmer?
Oh, no, I was a really late swimmer because I didn't grow up in Australia. And
Right.
so everyone in Australia learns to swim when they're really young.
Right.
You know, pretty much from prep. And when I came back to Australia when I was quite a bit older, I was like the biggest kid in the swimming class. It was very humiliating.
On the kickboard and the noodle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's pretty much the same thing happens to Weird
Right,
in
okay.
this book. So if you want to get involved, if you want to win a copy, head to either our Kidlit Club page or group and comment on this episode's video with the answer to the following question.
Which author would you like to see slimed? Not including Sally Rippon. I added that bit.
You can include Sally Rippon.
I drew it back.
Okay, it's a game of skills, so you got to impress us, and winners are revealed on Friday.
Cool.
Okay,
As long as we can get in the swimming pool after having been slimed.
that's a good idea. I like it. Makes sense. Thanks for joining us for another episode, and we'll see you in a fortnight.
Bye.
Bye.